On today's episode, we have our Week 12 waiver wire targets with FAAB bids. As Aidan alluded, bit of a wonky waiver wire, pretty wonky schedule of games, football every day, which is kind of a dream come true, but we need to be strategic with the waiver wire. We need to be paying attention to the injury updates that are going to be coming up because, this was a bad week for injuries, Aidan. I'm questioning why I even play fantasy football after the first quarter injuries that we had to deal with this week. And the waiver wire isn't necessarily turning over winners. Jake Browning, as it currently stands, may be able to keep Ja'Marr Chase afloat, but I don't think you're going to be putting him in your fantasy lineup. So it's pretty bleak. I'm gonna be pretty point blank with you. But
our guy Keegan is not optimistic about Mr. Browning from the University of Washington.
He isn't. Jake Browning, I think, played pretty well, all things considered. Not well enough to get a recommendation on this show, but regardless, we need to be able to show out for the mean team. We need to get them recommendations. We need to get your lineup stocked. We need to get your lineup stuffed. You're right, because it's Thanksgiving week. You're going to be stuffed.
That's nice.
I'm on a roll here.
That's good.
Do we have bye weeks this week? I don't think so, right?
Zero
buys this week.
Week 13 is hell, though. Week 13
week 14.
is hell.
And week 14, which is just... Why?
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. No. I think there's like 6 both of the. Let me look real fast. Just peek ahead. There's 6 and 13. Only 2 and 14 actually. But next week's a doozy. It's a doozy in 13.
We will be having a waiver wire episode next week for the mean team as always. But before we dive into Week 12 waiver wire, today's episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Fantasy drafts might be Jover, but you can still put your knowledge to the test and win cash prizes on Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy now has an exclusive offer for new customers. Not only will they double your deposit up to $100, they are offering a mystery pick'em special when you sign up using promo code RTM. First things first, Aidan, we got to get through the injury news. And it's a list. It's a list here.
List.
I'm looking at a list here. First off, we have Joe Burrow out for the rest of the season. Jake Browning is going to be the immediate starter for the Bengals. Their playoff hopes probably
it's
dashed.
Damn near over, dude. The AFC is crazy this year. I didn't see this one coming.
Yeah, the Bengals and Chargers probably aren't going to go to the playoffs. That's pretty crazy if you think about it.
Yeah.
TBD on if Jake Browning can do anything for the Bengals. We hinted that a little bit in the intro. I am of the opinion that he might be able to keep Ja'Marr Chase as a wide receiver 1. I find it highly unlikely that he is going to be able to support both him and Higgins. So, nightmare. Another nightmare here is Mark Andrews. He is out for the rest of the regular season. There was some optimistic news that he might be back for the playoffs, which is cool. I would love for Mark Andrews to get a extended look at the playoff run, but for fantasy purposes, he is probably done for the season. We'll have some options here to pivot off of. If you really are desperate at tight end and you have not had your trade deadline yet, I would recommend trading for one if you're trying to really replace Andrews' production, because the wire doesn't really have it, in my opinion. Major injury to Geno Smith, hurt his elbow. Aaron Donald hit him so hard. Did you see that hit of when Aaron Donald hit Geno?
I missed most of the 1 p.m. slate. I was on the road, but
Dude.
I think he came back in, no?
He did. He came back in at the end of the game. Pete Carroll's saying he's probably going to play. Sounds like he's a game-time decision. Must-win matchup, Thanksgiving night against the Niners. I would have to think Geno Smith suits up. I don't really think anyone here is starting Geno Smith unless you're in a 2-quarterback league. However, it does have downstream impact here to DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Tyler Lockett. And then you've got Kenneth Walker here, who hurt his oblique. He has had a slew of injuries in his 2-year career, including he started off his rookie season with a core muscle surgery, oblique, core muscle. I don't know. I'm not a doctor here. I'm not a physical therapist, but they're pretty close to each other. My guess is Kenneth Walker misses time. Are you aligned here on him missing time?
Yeah, the report was pretty vague. It was like they don't suspect he's an IR candidate, but from what it looks like, he is going to miss some time. So I think like Thursday is pretty much like certainty. Like he's going to miss. How much beyond that? yes, TBD. I think like they don't really have enough information, or they might just be, being a little coy before the Thursday night game to, just play a bit of poker with the Niners. But he's not playing this week. Big boost for Zach Sharp, even though it's a brutal matchup.
Aaron Jones injured his left knee. Looked like his season was over. He was crying on the cart on the way out into the locker room. Looks like he avoided something serious. He most likely misses time, right? But doesn't seem like his season's over, from my understanding.
I don't know. We'll see. There's not much season left, and they're not a playoff team.
They're one game out, though. So they definitely have the illusion that they can fight for a playoff spot. So it's
I'm glad they believe
NFC is brutal.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad outside of like the top like
3
teams.
Yeah. Devon Achane looks like he re-injured his knee, but he doesn't need surgery and he's considered day to day. I don't think he plays on Friday, but
no, I don't think so either.
Doesn't sound like he's going to miss an extended period of time.
Yep.
Dante Foreman ankle sprain. You got any insight on this? Is this a multi-week absence, Aidan?
I don't think he's going to miss time. He came back in the game. I don't know, though. I don't really think you want any of that backfield right now, though.
Herbert looked good.
Herbert looked good. Rashod averaged 5 yards a carry on a 33% snap share. At this point, you're kind of playing Russian roulette on who's going to fall into the end zone, I think. And that's not a game that I think you should be willing to play this far in the season. So I think like Foreman was kind of a hero for a couple of weeks. If you got him off, he had a couple like top 10 running back finishes, which was awesome. So do I see him missing time? No. Do I think he's still a serviceable fantasy asset? Like, I don't know to tell you. We've got 3 guys that I think are going to get kind of almost equal touches going forward, which, as we know, is just an absolute disaster for fantasy.
Yeah, that backfield's going to be hard to parse through.
It's good for real football. It's not good for fantasy.
Tyreek Hill injured his hand or wrist, came back and played, made a couple splash plays, and then didn't really do much for the rest of the game. I'd be shocked if Tyreek misses time, but something to keep an eye out on. And then Cooper Kupp, it looks like he has a low right ankle sprain. Typically, that's like a 1 to 2 week absence. They're fighting for a playoff spot. Therefore, I think they're 5-6
somehow.
Now.
Somehow
They're a game out. They're right there with the Packers. We're a team that was like, we just need to get hot. Like, look, we just saw the Broncos rip off 4 or 5 straight wins. They were the worst team in football. Now they just can't lose. So anything could really happen. I'm optimistic Kupp will be fine, but it's just tough to watch him deal with the injuries that he's dealt with over the past couple seasons.
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of almost just like fell off a cliff, like with these injuries with him the last 2 years. And it's just like a fat bummer, but like we've kind of just been overlooking his age. And then we realized like he is just older too. And it's like this kind of just happens. So super unfortunate for Cooper Kupp. Big boost for Puka.
Joe Burrow, Mark Andrews, Geno Smith, Aaron Jones, Devin Achane, Kenneth Walker, Dante Foreman, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp. That is absurd.
Watson was shut down this week, right?
Watson was shut down last week, I think.
Was it last week?
Yeah, Watson's out. You're talking about Deshaun Watson, the massage man?
Yeah. I think it was like early last week, though, right? Like, So like,
dude,
that's
I think they shut him down like on a Wednesday. Like, they just.
Yeah. It was kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Pretty brutal week this close to fantasy playoffs. Especially with like, I know a lot of the defaults for the trade deadline is this week. So like you have until, the end of Monday Night Football to make any trades for, potentially if your league is week 11, which, a handful of mine are. So yeah, tough to have some of these guys go down as you're kind of panicking to, try to scrounge together some assets before the final push here.
Well, all stars are hurt. All pros are hurt. We're hurting, but the season doesn't stop for anybody. It's next man up. We got to hit the waiver wire, and we got to put our hats on. We got to grab our lunch pails, and we got to get to work, Aidan. But before we dive into the wire, we want to thank you. We've made, 12 waiver wire episodes now, Aidan. We've had some ride or dies that have been with us the whole entire time. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you for being a part of the Me Team. Thank you for engaging with us. Thank you for being a part of this journey that we are undertaking. If you are new to this channel or you've been to this channel and you're like, I don't know, I like these guys, I watch the videos, but you haven't had a chance to subscribe, go ahead, hit the subscribe button, like this video, drop any of your questions in the comments below, whether it be start sit questions, waiver wire questions, dynasty questions. Hit us with it all. We're always responding and engaging with you guys. This is why we do it. We've made over 100 episodes, Aidan. We want to make 100 more. And we're trying to get to our goal of 1,000 subs. It's a big deal for us. It allows us to monetize this channel, and we make this channel free for you. And we're trying to grow and make this into something. So we'd appreciate it if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Aidan, you ready? Running backs?
Let's do it, man. Let's get after it.
So if you are new to our waiver wire show, typically we're looking for guys under 35% rostership on Sleeper. This late in the season, we're trying to give you the edge. We'll have some dart throws, but we're going to go with the meat and potatoes here. So if it's over 35%, we're scrapping it. We're just going to give you the best available options on the wire. Aidan, leading things off here, and let me pull up our screen. Let's go to sleeper.com here. I'm pulling up the trending players right now on Sleeper. I have to imagine that the number one ad in all of fantasy right now is Zach Charbonnet, rookie running back here for the Seattle Seahawks, rostered in 51% of leagues. I don't know how long Kenneth Walker is going to be out for, Aidan. Could be a week, could be a month. You never know. But this guy has a checkered injured history, and the Seahawks love to establish the run. So with that combination, Zach Charbonnet, second-round rookie out of UCLA, seems like the ideal guy to catapult you into the fantasy playoffs. He saw 84% of the snaps when Walker went down, and he looks like an immediate bell cow. He looks good, violent runner in between the tackles, as good as a wide receiver out of the backfield. The only problem with Charbonnet, and to temper expectations, his next 4 matchups, he faces off against the 49ers, the Cowboys, the 49ers, and the Eagles.
Dude, it's a gauntlet. It's like, it came at the worst time. I feel like we've all been kind of demanding more Charb all year, and now it's like, oh God, like we got it, but it's going to be tough for him. If Geno's hurt too, makes it even tougher. I'm going to do that with Drew Lock, but he's going to get, the bell cow of those carries, I think, which is super exciting.
What's super exciting about Charbonnet and why he's a priority ad, regardless of how bad these matchups are, and his schedule is brutal, folks. He has Tennessee after Philadelphia, which is a good run D, Pittsburgh and Arizona. He's very involved as a pass catcher. 6 targets, 6 catches, 22 yards. We'd love to see more yards with his opportunities, but he reminds me a lot of like DeMarco Murray, Joe Mixon, big physical running back that can play all 3 downs. San Francisco, I'll tell you this, guys. They've been good against the run, but not amazing against the run. They've gotten gashed. Like Joe Mixon had a huge game against them. You can run on
just
them.
had a good game.
You can run on them. It's not the end of the world. Now, is it the end of the world in the sense like they're probably 7 or 8 point underdogs, right, to the Niners? That's not great. You don't want to be a big dog and be the starting running back on a team. But I think if Geno's out there, you're going to be able to start him comfortably. Dallas is a tough matchup. It's tough, but I mean, you're looking at a guy who had 85% of the snaps and a player that was trending up over the past month. So this is a drop your entire FAAB. Like, I don't.
This is let it sing. You're getting a starting running back in week 12 on offense that's underperformed, but dude's super talented. He got drafted in the second round for a reason.
I've got 2 more running backs. How many do you have?
I've got 3.
Okay.
One's DJ Dallas, just to go on top of this. I think I would wait to see what type of time. Like,
look at this picture.
The sleeper pick's insane. I was startled. Like, I know I've seen it this year, and I saw it again. I was like, relax. So it'd be nice to know what, like, the severity of Kenneth Walker's injury, because DJ Dallas is going to get some snaps. That's just Pete Carroll. He's not going to feature one running back, and DJ Dallas has been the number 3 guy in that rotation all year. So I don't know. This is just kind of someone to monitor. I may not even be adding him, but just someone to be aware of, as he could be the Sharp to like Kenneth Walker going forward. Like in a perfect world, like Sharp's getting like 70% of the snaps though, and really taking the majority of that going forward. But I just wanted to flag that one too as kind of a lesser option in that backfield.
Any other options outside of the Seattle backfield?
Yeah, this is a guy that I highlighted last week. It's Ty Chandler. This feels like a kind of like Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris, or Pollard and Zeke of last year. Like, this is the more explosive running back in that backfield. We saw a pretty good game out of him this week. You see he's got back-to-back games now over 10 points. The dude had 73 yards on 10 carries. Good for dude, 7 yards a clip. He clearly has way more burst than Alexander Mattison out of the backfield. I know the Alexander Mattison truthers will come after me in the comments. He's just really not that good, and that's kind of what it is. Like, it is what it is. He had a solid game, but it's just like it's pulling teeth with him. It's never easy. It's just like running into linemen. I think this is the better person in that backfield, and I think he's starting to get rewarded with more touches, which is super exciting. Caught all 4 of his targets too for 37 yards. So looks to be a much bigger threat out of the backfield than Madison.
Yeah.
And, if this continues to trend in the right direction, I wouldn't be shocked if we start seeing closer to a 50-50 split on him. So he's, just past our kind of 35-40% threshold in terms of ownership. But if you lost a running back or even just need a bit of help or kind of a flyer going into playoffs, I think Ty Chandler is an awesome option. I think we're going to see him continue to get more touches out of that backfield. He's earned it, quite frankly.
Yeah, Madison had one of the better games he's had all season. I thought he looked really, really good on some of his runs. I think their run game is starting to figure it out. Where Chandler's ultra valuable is these 4 catches for 37 yards.
Yep.
Yeah, you're going to take
It's a nice floor. It's a nice floor.
It's
like a 5-point floor. Like, you get a touchdown, some rushing yards on top of it. You're 10, 15 points weekly out of an RB2. I don't hate it.
And he's rostered in 47% of sleeper leagues. DJ Dallas, 0%. Is Charbonnet, 51%. I like Ty Chandler. I think that's a great pickup. I think a lot of people picked him up last week, but if he's still out there, you should grab him. A guy who's a little bit more of a deep cut. He's a handcuff play. You're not going to be able to play him as a starter, but he's rostered in 24% of leagues, and that's Elijah Mitchell, the backup running back for the San Francisco 49ers. We saw Christian McCaffrey come off the field a little bit for the first time this season, and Mitchell got some run, and he looked great. He had 4 carries for 24 yards, 6 yards a pop. I was really impressed. He was erasing angles. He looked like he had excellent burst. He looked really healthy, Aidan, probably for the first time all season. If you look at his chart, it's just hilarious how many games he's missed with knee sprains and knee issues. It's not actually hilarious. It's a bummer, but it's hilariously predictable in the sense of you get your hopes up. I don't think you're going to be able to start Mitchell at all. CMC is the bell cow. However, if something were to happen to CMC, I would die inside. But if something were to happen to CMC, Elijah Mitchell does look like he is clearly the backup to Christian McCaffrey, and he looks healthy. So in that situation, he's obviously going to be competing with touches with Jordan Mason, but I feel really good about Elijah Mitchell at this point. Rostering him at the end of your bench is kind of a lottery ticket. So you're not going to get that starter ability that you get with Ty Chandler and Zach Charbonnet, which would be high priorities in my opinion on the wire. But with Mitchell, you could dole out 2 to 5%, very limited investment of your FAAB, maybe not even put in a bid, and you could bring him on your roster. And if you have CMC, get him on your roster like now. He's the direct backup.
I'm probably only owning him if I have CMC personally, but it depends what your room looks like. Did you see the interview with Kyle Shanahan when they asked him why
Grant Cohn.
Jordan Mason? Yeah, it was Grant.
Like, because he's behind 2 other running backs. 2 guys would have to get hurt.
It was pretty funny. Kyle was just like, dude, he's the 3rd string running back. Like, what do you want from me? No, I thought it was funny, but no, this is a good shout. Yeah, it wouldn't be surprising too if they maybe just like ease up on the CMC usage, kind of get him a bit fresh for playoffs. So maybe it's someone that starts to get a bit more touches in a pretty high flying offense over the last couple of weeks here before fantasy playoffs.
Take out an insurance policy if you have CMC, or take out an insurance policy against a CMC owner, right? It's just, if you have a spot to play with at the edge of your bench and you're set,
I love a bench. Yeah.
Another guy that's really interesting, and this was a favorite of yours heading into the season, is Semaje Perine. this backfield's a mess. 36% of the snaps. I think everyone gets a touch, right? Between McLaughlin, Perine, and Javonte, with Javonte being the lead back. I think Jaleel plays on third down, but Semaje plays in the hurry up offense. Like, that's kind of the sense that I was getting watching that game and looking at the usage. However, the Broncos are kind of always in comeback mode, and Russell Wilson's kind of checked down Charlie. So it's creating this situation where Semaje Perine is just getting force-fed targets here. He's had
cool.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. He had back-to-back games over 7 fantasy points. Last week, 3.7. A lot of this came on that final drive, but he had 7 receptions for 60 yards. He's got matchups against Cleveland, Houston, the Chargers, Detroit. These are a lot of opportunities where I think the Broncos could be like in comeback mode, pass the ball mode. So he has standalone viability, in my opinion. Again, deep flex for maybe bye week hell. But if something were to happen to Javonte or Jaleel McLaughlin, and for some reason this backfield consolidates into 2 guys, and Perine's one of the other guys, you're looking at a guy who could catch like 5 passes a game, because he's already catching 2 to 3. And if you bump that up to 5 or 6, we're talking about a guy you could probably start in a pinch. I don't see a ton of ceiling with Semaje Perine, but I think he's quite interesting as a guy you could pick up probably for free. What are your thoughts on Perine, Aidan?
Yeah, I like him. I was probably way too high on him in the offseason, as we all know. I thought he was going to take Jameson Williams' job, and that was not the case. So that's a big old carton of milk on my end. But yeah, he's a great pass catcher. They're paying him, a pretty decent amount of money, and yeah, he's reliable out of the backfield. So yeah, kind of negative game scripts would definitely help him, as like you said, it feels like they are playing from behind quite a bit. But he's worth rostering. 19% is a bit too low, but also, devil's advocate, the 3-headed monster, kind of like we talked about with Chicago, it's just hard. It's very week to week in terms of what the script looks like, who's, scheming up more touches. So, this is 1-2%.
I'd much
for
rather
sure.
Mitchell, because Mitchell's just an upside play, right?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Any other running backs before we transition to wide receiver?
Yeah, the last one, this is a little high, but just going off one of the injuries we talked about, A.J. Dillon's only owned in 60% of leagues,
good call.
Which is, that's too low. Their third-string running back actually also got hurt. What was his name? I was looking at it. Emmanuel Wilson, rookie. So, they play on Thursday. I think we're looking at A.J. Dillon and probably someone getting elevated from the practice squad as the running backs this week.
29 against the Chargers run defense. Oh,
and it's not a great matchup. Detroit's been pretty stingy, so I wouldn't be doing cartwheels if you're an AJ Dillon owner, because this guy, it's just like 2-3 yards a carry.
You'd have to start him if he got.
But you have to start
touches,
him. Yeah, you have to start him. He's going to be the primary ball carrier there. So yeah, 61%. If for whatever reason, maybe you're in 8-man league or something, he might be out there. Anything probably 10 to 12, he shouldn't be there. But go check your waivers for him. I'm expecting Aaron Jones to miss a couple weeks just from the reaction in the cart and everything. So again, 61%. I'm cheating quite a bit on this one, but worth flagging.
I'd get aggressive with FAAB with AJ Dillon. It's not going to be pretty.
100%. Yeah,
you plug him in to your lineup.
It's like Char. Like I'm probably dropping almost all of my remaining FAAB, depending on how much you have.
Transition to wide receivers, I think it makes sense. We're already on the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
I'm going to make this recommendation again.
Every single week.
I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop, Aidan, with my sweet prince, Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed scores over 19 fantasy points for the second consecutive week. I don't know if he's the best wide receiver, like skill-wise, yet in this receiving core, but he's now the wide receiver 35 on the season. He scored double-digit fantasy points in 4 out of 5 games. The targets are grossly distributed in this offense. I saw, I think Mike Clay had it out there. I think 6 guys have between 13 and 15 targets over the past 2 to 3 games. I forget the exact particulars, but it looked like the the Commanders offense. Don't cancel me. I looked like it looked like the Commanders offense. I don't know if Reed is the guy quite yet, but I think he's emerging. 69% of the snaps, most he's played
Yeah.
since week 8. Had a sick end-around rushing touchdown.
Yeah, he had they don't show it. I think he had 4 or 5 carries, which is cool too.
He's sick.
He's kind of starting to get like the Debo role from a couple of years ago, where they're just getting him the ball like however they can, which is pretty exciting.
Wow, if Aaron Jones is hurt.
Yeah, he could. Dude, who
Oh,
knows? Like
wow.
they might even give him some touches like out of the backfield. Like some like speed sweeps, stuff out on the outside. Like crack sweep. But
He scored his second rushing touchdown of the season this week. He had
yeah, it was.
three
I
carries.
don't think he got touched. Yeah, I don't think he got touched on it.
Three carries, 46 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown on top of 4 of 6 for 46.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I would not be surprised if he gets a couple
little love,
carries.
Right? Little Jordan Love.
Jordan
Love driving fast. Inside joke. Who's your next receiver here?
I was gonna highlight Doubs here as well. It's not sexy at all, but like the dude pretty much scores like every week. All 3 wide receivers scored this week, which was like kind of a pain in the ass, but I guess it was cool. But Doubs, I don't know. He's the red zone guy. I think like we've seen it
touchdowns this year.
Jordan Love really trusts him. I think like he is his most trusted red zone target. And it's really not even close. So again, we're cheating a bit. I think Reed is closer to like 40%. We're at 61% here.
Dobbs is 61%.
But yeah, I don't know, man. He's a pretty consistent, like 5 targets a game. At least 1 or 2 of those are going to be in the red zone, and he's coming down with them. He's big bodied guy, 6'2", 204 compared to more of a fun size Jayden Reed. So yeah, I don't know. This Packers offense is weird. Granted, they did play the Chargers, but
interesting. It's
and I figure they're going to be playing from behind against Detroit. I don't see this going well on the scoreboard for the Packers, which could bode well for the Packers pass catchers this week. So I don't know. It's interesting. He just keeps scoring touchdowns, man. It's like, 7. Yeah, like you said, 7 touchdowns is you can't
13 targets against Detroit in week 4, and he had 18.5 fantasy points. Second highest output of the year for Dobbs. Yeah, he's a nice little flex play if you're starting 2 wide receivers. Great bye week guy, honestly.
Totally.
I'm in on him as a bye week guy. I've got a BOGO.
Rip it. Here. We like a good BOGO on this show. We are.
I have Odell Beckham and Rashod Bateman as 2 guys worth picking up. Beckham's rostered in 40% of sleeper leagues. Bateman 17%. Don't know the status of OBJ's shoulder, so we're recording here. It is Monday, the 20th, around 5 p.m. Like we don't even know. The Monday night game hasn't even happened yet. But OBJ's clearly, I think, consolidated as the number 1 or 1A or 1B, however you want to break it, at receiver in this lineup. He's
pretty wild.
11 fantasy points 3 weeks in a row. 4 for 116. He had 7 targets in week 11. Clearly is developing some sort of chemistry here with Lamar. The reason why I think he's definitely worth picking up if he's out there, Mark Andrews is out for the rest of the year, and Mark Andrews is 5-6 targets per game and 5 to 6 red zone targets per game. You have to imagine Isiah Likely gets 2 to 3 of those, but we're seeing more looks here, and Zay Flowers has looked good, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for either Beckham or Bateman to really establish themselves. Bateman catches a touchdown last week, only 2 targets, 10 yards. Bateman's coming off the Lisfranc injury. I think it's definitely an adjustment. He's trying to get his athleticism back. He's shown some flashes on tape. I think they're both worth the risk. Bateman's more of a stash, in my opinion. Beckham at this point is somebody, if you're really, really hurting, you can maybe start. They have a bye week, week 13. My guess, though, is he probably doesn't play against the Chargers. And if that's the case, Bateman's very interesting. Very, very interesting if Beckham doesn't play. What are your thoughts on the duo in Baltimore that we have?
Yeah, the OBJ emergence is not something I saw coming. I think But I think like just to highlight both of these guys, it just feels like they're both like finally like fully healthy again. Like they both came back from various injuries from 2022. And yeah, like the Mark Andrews targets have to be spread out. We'll get into his replacement later, I'm sure. But these are two interesting guys. I would probably lean OBJ out of the two of them, but Bateman's quite a bit younger, has more of that like game breaking speed still. So I don't know, which one do you lean here. I think I've got to give the nod to OBJ, but like I'm not heavy either way here.
What's crazy is Bateman plays more snaps, but OBJ is getting targeted way more. I have to imagine it's OBJ. It's just where the targets have been going.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I think at the end of the day, Zay Flowers is the big winner. I think he's going to benefit the most, but you have to think some targets are going to trickle down to one of these two. And my guess is OBJ. They paid him $15 million. He's clearly gotten targeted when he's out there. It's very similar underlying metrics as Zay Flowers so far this season. So
yeah,
both are worth an ad in my opinion. The last receiver that I have here, Aidan, I got Elijah Moore. Did you have Elijah Moore?
No, I did not.
Elijah Moore's rostered in 47% of sleeper leagues. Back-to-back weeks with 7 targets, 15 fantasy points in week 10 against Baltimore, 11 in week 12 points in week 11 against Pittsburgh. My thinking here is the Dorian Thompson-Robinson Browns offense is going to be a little bit of a check down underneath offense. I don't think he is going to be able to connect on a lot of deep shots, and I think Amari Cooper is really going to struggle. But we saw in this game that David Njoku and Elijah Moore were targeted a ton. He's like a low A-dot slot guy, right? But I think he's going to connect a little bit more at DTR because this is going to be a little bit more of a dink and dunk offense. What are your thoughts on Elijah Moore?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good logic. The last couple weeks are definitely encouraging. He'd kind of posted a couple stinkers before then. And yeah, has gone over 10 points back-to-back weeks. 7 targets is pretty cool. We'll see who DTR gravitates to. I also think, there's obviously the chance that Joe Flacco takes the reins in this offense, which at that point, who knows what that means. It could be some deeper shots, could help Amari again. But yeah, I like Elijah. It's he's trending in the right direction, what feels like for the first time all year in back-to-back games.
Didn't Elijah Moore played with Flacco last year on the Jets?
He did.
Yeah, he did. He didn't do much.
No, did not do much. Did not do much. So who knows what that means for him? But
wow.
Yeah, DTR was keeping him busy this week, which is cool against a pretty solid Pittsburgh secondary too. What
other receivers do you have this week?
Yeah, the first one I wanted to highlight is Jameson Williams. The stats don't jump off the page. In my opinion, he caught 2 balls, 44 yards, and a touchdown.
I like
but
this.
That's what I wanted to highlight is the snap share. I think they're starting to trust him a bit more. I think one thing to look back at actually was the previous week on that David Montgomery run, him kind of hustling downfield, getting that block. I think kind of just like buying into the offense there. I think they're just trusting him a bit more. It's like, this guy's 22 years old. He's still so young. Has had a pretty rocky start to his career, but the snap share, like you highlighted right away, you beat me to it, I think is pretty encouraging. They're kind of begging for a second wide receiver to emerge there. Josh Reynolds had, success early on, but has been pretty quiet since. Obviously, you've got Laporta and the running backs doing their thing, but I think there's an opportunity for him to emerge and kind of find his stride at the end of this year going into next. So that's someone I'm interested in. I think obviously his deep ball threat too is exciting. He could give you 10 points in one given play.
Glass half empty, he only has 11 catches in his career. Glass half full, he has 3 touchdowns on 11 catches. So the guy's clearly a big play threat.
They're going to give him, they're going to keep giving him chances, especially, he's in the right place, doing the right things. Dan Campbell rewards his guys. So I thought that was a good one to shout. The last one I had is the Dortch chamber.
No.
and this isn't one that I really expected.
Dortch.
I
No.
like like you figured with Kyler coming back, this was going to be like Marquise Brown is back, and that really hasn't been the case, unfortunately. Greg Dortch led the team in targets this week. The guy had 8 targets, caught 6 of them for 76 yards. So again, not the biggest fantasy output. You're looking at about 13, 14 points there. Rondale Moore caught his only target for a touchdown. I know we all saw the highlight there. And then Marquise Brown was just behind him, which I want to say about 6 or 7 targets off the top of my head. So this is pretty interesting. I don't know, like 8 targets is definitely something to look at. Nothing the week prior. So maybe this is just a 1 week kind of wonder
from Michael Wilson being out, but regardless, eye test, Dortch looked awesome. Like
he looked really good. Like the routes are good. He's catching balls. He's in the right place. So yeah, I think it's someone to highlight. Like I think this Cardinals offense is going to go on a run, especially for fantasy purposes. So it's just kind of figuring.
Kyler Murray, Trey McBride, take me home.
They won't take him off the field, but one of these wide receivers have to be relevant. It's likely Marquise Brown, but hell, man, Dortch did lead the team in targets and pretty good output. So 1-2%. This is another light bid, but got to show some love to the Dorcher chamber.
So in terms of bids, Jayden Reed, highest bid, right? I mean, I think you get super aggressive with Jayden Reed. Same with Romeo Doubs. He's a great bid. I'm Jayden Reed like 30%, Dobbs like 15-20. The Ravens crew like 5
like
to
10%,
8. Like
5 to 8, like 10
like
most.
3 to 5. Elijah Moore, I'd be willing to bid up a little bit on Elijah Moore. I like him.
I
agree. Like 7 to 8%, 10%.
Yeah, I was going to say around 8, then maybe around 5 for the last 2, maybe even a little less, to be honest.
Jameson's interesting. I think they'd have to start passing the ball more for him to hit home, but I like him as a stash. And then Dortch, probably get him for free. Pick him up, see if last week was an aberration, and then cut bait.
Yep.
Really quickly here, moving on to quarterbacks. I have 2. We probably have the same 2, right?
Yep. Jake Browning.
You have Jake Browning?
It's worth noting, dude. Okay. Like there's a lot of nice cars in that garage to where I think he could potentially be relevant. Like he's worth at least rostering. I feel like people are like giving him a lot of shit, and like he was really good in college. He was a Heisman finalist his sophomore season. He threw for over 40 touchdowns at Washington that year. His junior and senior seasons were, they were fine. But this is a guy that's like played a lot of good football. It's not, a one-hit wonder out of a, Mountain West school. Like this guy,
it's not like Tim Boyle.
Played a ton of football.
It's not 2 touchdowns at Connecticut.
It's not Tim Boyle. So, obviously Baltimore is a tough matchup. Like this isn't, he came in losing to a top 3 defense and they're like, go get him, Jake. So I think Pittsburgh
was fine. Like
I thought he was fine too.
40 rushing yards. He was under duress. He had 40 rushing yards. He took a couple sacks that were bad because he was staring at his receiver. But he threw a garbage time touchdown. There are a ton of horses in this garage.
Yep.
This offense has good play calling. Is shown to have good play calling. I don't know if I'm ready to pick him up in 2 QBs, like 2 QB leagues or Superflex. You got to pick him up, right?
2 QBs, yes, absolutely.
You got to, just to see what you got out of him.
Yeah.
But 40 rushing yards was sick. He looked mobile. I'm gonna give him that. I'm
not like this week's his audition. I have like zero sway either way with Jake Browning, but you're looking at a starting quarterback. In a 2 QB league, absolutely pick him up. Like this is a guy that's going to start every week. Like there's no one else but you, Jake. It's kind of Jake or nothing in that offense. So it's worth noting.
My quarterbacks that I have here, I've got Jordan Love as my priority at quarterback. QB 11 on the season, averaging 18 fantasy points per game. He's basically been a fringe QB1 all year, kind of hovering in that like 11 to 14 range per week. He has a pretty soft schedule rest of season. He's got Detroit, Kansas City, New York Giants, Tampa Bay, Carolina Panthers, Minnesota Vikings, Chicago Bears. I got to think this is like the ideal replacement for Joe Burrow if you just lost him. It's not sexy. It's not CJ Stroud sexy, right? In terms of what he can do to your lineup, but he's been pretty solid. I like 15, 14, 13, 16, 20. You'd like to see those 15s be 17s, but it's been better like Geno Smith. and he has 1, 2, 3, 4 games over 20 fantasy points. I don't know. You got to take it, right? It's pretty bleak out there right now.
Yeah, the rushing upside too
he has a nice rushing floor.
The last 2 weeks, he really hasn't gotten loose on the ground, but the weeks prior, 20, 30, 30, 30, like, there's some upside there. So yeah, it's, you're not looking at like top 5 QB upside with Jordan Love, but plug in a 10 to like 15 QB finish every week, and it's not the worst outcome.
Other guy I have is Baker Mayfield. Kind of a rough week against the Niners. It's kind of, you saw it coming.
Yeah,
but
right. Yeah.
QB 15 on the season, averaging 16.5 fantasy points per game before face planning against the Niners. He had 3 consecutive top 10 finishes. I will say I watched him play. He looked pretty good. Like he was making some pretty good throws. They were a little overmatched, in my opinion, just up front. It was pretty difficult, but he's got matchups against the Colts, the Panthers, the Falcons, the Packers, the Jaguars, the Saints, the Panthers. Definitely some startable weeks in there for Baker. So I feel pretty good about Baker. He's been a pretty steady recommendation on this channel throughout the season.
Yeah, we've said his name quite a bit, and he kind of keeps hovering around our like 35, 40% rostership. So it's, again, like you could do a lot worse. But
Jordan Love. Sorry, what were you saying?
I was going to say I'd probably rather have Jordan Love just due to the
rushing,
kind of like rushing upside, but Baker's got better he's got better weapons, so I don't know. I'll flip a coin.
Jordan Love, 46% rostered. Jake Browning, 0%. That'll climb. Baker Mayfield, 48% rostered. I mean, probably 10 to 15% on Love, maybe for rest of season. 5 to 10 on Baker, 0 to 5 on Browning. What do we think? Nice round numbers. You like that?
Yeah. I'm cool with that.
Tight ends, real quick, and get out of here.
Yep, I got 2 quick hitters.
I'm guessing we both have Isiah Likely.
Isiah Likely, yep. He's cheating again. He's at 63%.
That's insane. He's already at...
Wait,
no, he's at 6% rostered.
Who was I looking at that had 60? All right, I have got that right. Wow, that's lower. Okay, I must have been looking at someone else. Yeah, 6%. Go get Isiah Likely. I've got to assume he's going to be pretty involved. There's so many, tight end specific, like schemed up plays. And he obviously plugs into that athletic pass catching tight end there. And the other one I had was Donald Parham.
Wow, good
quietly
one.
Good outing. I don't know how much. I haven't looked into the Gerald Everett injury, to be honest. I don't know how much longer he's out, but decent little outing from him. He dropped a pass, but caught 4 or 6 of his targets for 57 yards. Kind of similar to like what we talked about earlier. Like, this offense is begging for like a second option to step up in this passing game. Quentin Johnston's a disaster. You've got Guyton, whatever. It's like we need a second pass catcher, his frame's pretty awesome.
Smart.
How I looked at our buddy Shane, who's our resident Chargers fan. I was like, who is this guy? Who's this guy that just caught a 50-yard touchdown?
Stone Smart.
Unbelievable, but brutal. Donald Parham, I feel like, has been a guy that like Chargers Twitter has been like hyping up for years. They love, dude. He's 6'8", 237, like massive frame. So who knows? Maybe he emerges as like a number 2, 3 option in that offense alongside Keenan. So yeah, Donald Parham's a good one.
2 guys that I have. I've got Michael Mayer, 18% rostered, back-to-back games of 5 targets. Clearly has a rapport with Aidan O'Connell. 8 points, 10 points, back-to-back weeks. It's not great, folks, but what are you going to do? At least Mary's got some pedigree. He's looked pretty good. Cade Otton, too. Cade Otton has had 5 targets or more. I had to double-check this. He's had 5 targets or more in 4 out of his last 5 games, including 3 games with 6+ targets.
He gave me like a donut in week 10, so me and Cade aren't really on speaking terms right now.
He gave you 3, 2 for 10.
It was, but
yeah,
he's involved. He's involved.
He's involved.
Yeah,
that's all it is at this point. He's like the 3rd or 4th option, but he's involved. He gets his targets, and he's on the field like basically the whole entire game. So you could do worse than Cade Otton. Michael Mayer has been over 80% snaps, like 5 6 out of the last 7 weeks too. So Michael Mayer's a full-time player. Cade Otton's a full-time player. Donald Parham is is he the second best option in this offense type guy? And then Likely is very interesting in my opinion and intriguing. He didn't do much in the one game Mark Andrews missed. And he hasn't done too much this season, but we all know Lamar loves tight ends. So
he does love his tight ends. Big bodies, especially down in the red zone. Yeah, he likes that.
All these guys, maybe Likely 10%. You could get aggressive with Likely, make a bet.
That's the only one I would get aggressive with.
Yeah.
I would check on the Everett injury before really doing anything significant with Parham, as once he's back, he really takes a backseat role. And then the other two, I'm going like at 5%, if that, on Mayer or not Cotton. I guess Cotton kind of works.
You've got Cotton. You've got a Week 12 matchup with the Chargers for likely a bye, and then I don't know. We'll see. I wouldn't get too aggressive with Likely, but if you have some FAAB and you're really trying to replace Mark Andrews, it's pretty logical to try and take a right dice roll. You might get burned, but I think it's worth the risk.
Yep, I agree.
That's it. Week 12 waivers. We did it, Aidan.
In the books.
Oh, who's going to win? Chiefs or Eagles?
It's in Kansas City, correct?
Yeah.
I would bet the Chiefs win this game.
For the bye, please.
I think they've just got a much better defense. But we'll see. We will see what happens tonight. I think it's going to be an awesome game. Kind of similar to how the Super Bowl shook out. So I'm just hoping for good football. I'm Rob Lowe tonight.
All right, dude. Appreciate you hopping on as always. Go Justin Fields. Go Bears.
Yep.
All right, buddy. Appreciate it. And thank you everybody for tuning in. Until next time.